Chapter 131. You whore. How dare you seduce my boyfriend? I'll make your life a living hell. Tina kept forcing the wine on Dahlia, humiliating her before the crowd. She was rough and ruthless. By the time the bottle of wine was emptied, Dahlia had slumped to the ground helplessly. Even then, Tina did not stop. She grabbed a fistful of Dahlia's hair and pulled her head up. Then, a torrent of slaps rained down on Dahlia, each one harder than the one before. You slut. You whore. How dare you mess with my boyfriend? How dare you? Tina shouted as she roughed Dahlia up, almost in a frenzy. When Tina finally stopped, Dahlia's face was swollen and blotched, with streaks of blood coming out the corner of her mouth. Why? Why? Dahlia asked breathlessly, trying to regain her bearings. You have the audacity to ask why. Are you unaware of what you have done, you bitch? Tina reached for Dahlia's hair again and slammed her head hard to the ground. Blood gushed out immediately. A mixture of blood and wine dripped down Dahlia's face. The sight of Dahlia lying on the ground and unable to get up did not garner any sympathy from Tina, in fact. It seemed to excite her. She raised her leg and stomped hard on Dahlia's linger. Ah! Dahlia could finally hold in no longer, and a shriek escaped her. A piercing pain overtook her senses. You shameless tramp. You like flirting around with other men, don't you? I'd like to see if you'd ever seduce my boyfriend again. A crazed smile crept up on Tina's face as she repeatedly stepped on Dahlia's hand with her stilettos. Each time, it struck with greater brutality and ferocity. In no time, both of Dahlia's hands were a mess of flesh and blood. It was a terrifying sight. Ah! Dahlia's face turned lifeless from the agonizing pain, and she trembled uncontrollably. Even the strongest of men would not be able to endure it after such merciless torture, much less a woman like Dahlia. Most of the crowd felt sorry for her when they saw the state she was in. Surely an act of theft did not warrant such cold-blooded torture. It was too cruel. Dahlia, you can't blame me for this. You've only got yourself to blame for messing with Ms. Hummer's boyfriend and offending her. In a corner, Julie trembled like a leaf. She did not think that Tina would be so unforgiving. She just came short of torturing Dahlia to her gravel. Ms. Hummer, she's out cold. A bodyguard told Tina. Dahlia had already passed out from the abuse. She had multiple fractures on her fingers, and her entire palm was bloody. It was a ghastly scene. She's down so soon. What a bore. Tina looked down at Dahlia like she was not done with her yet. She lifted her leg and wiped the blood off her heels on Dahlia's clothes. Then, with a nonchalant wave of her hand, she said, "Throw her out. I'll play with her next time." Had it not been for her birthday party that night, she would make sure that she had her fun with her. After Dahlia was thrown out, Julie, who knew that she was guilty, dared not dally any longer. She sent Dahlia to the hospital immediately. The medical staff in the emergency ward were all shocked by Dahlia's state when she was sent in. She was a gruesome sight to behold, all covered in blood. The greatest issue was that it was an obvious case of assault, not an accident. So the question was, who would be so brutal to torture a woman until she was in such a miserable state? Where is the patient's next of kin? A doctor asked. There was another lady here with her earlier on, I don't know where she went. A nurse looked around, searching for Julie. Check the patient's bag to see if there's a phone in there. Contact her family right away. Okay, sure. The nurse went through Dahlia's bag and quickly found her phone and unlocked it with Dahlia's fingerprint. She called the contact, which was Seta's husband. Over at Peaceful Medical Center, a phone rang. Dustin, who was in the process of producing a mortunol, pulled his phone out and frowned. He picked up the call. Hello? Is anything the mauler? Hello? Are you a family member of the owner of this phone? I'm calling from the emergency ward of East Swinton Hospital. You need to come here as soon as possible. The patient's in bad shape. She's hurt. What happened? Dustin's brows knitted even tighter together. I'm not too sure either. Come quick. Dustin fell silent. Without a moment's hesitation, he rushed over to Fast Swinton Hospital after hanging up the call. When he stepped into the emergency ward to Lind Dahlia lying unconscious on the hospital bed, his expression clouded over. Her face was swollen, blood came out from her mouth, and her forehead had suffered a strong impact. Worst of all was her fingers, which were broken from being stepped on. They were a bloody mess that he could hardly bear the sight of. It was not difficult to imagine the pain she had been through before she lost consciousness. You're her husband, aren't you? What have you been up to? How could you let your wife be tortured so terribly? That's very irresponsible of you. The head nurse complained, feeling sorry for Dahlia. How is she? Dustin's brows furrowed. The patient is not in critical danger currently, but her wounds will take quite a while to heal. Her hands, especially, have multiple comminuted fractures. There is a possibility that they may never fully recover, the head nurse cautioned him. Who did this? Dustin's expression was terrifyingly cold and emotionless. How would I know? You're her husband, and you have no idea who did it. The head nurse scowled. Dustin held his silence. Suddenly, his gaze shot over to the door. There was a suspicious person craning by the door in an attempt to peek at them. He dashed over and grabbed the person. Hey, Rhys. What are you doing? Let go of me. Julie cried out in dismay. Who did this to Dahlia? Tell me, Dustin demanded furiously. How would I know? Julie stuttered. The very next second, she was lifted off the ground by a hand that found its way around her throat. She suffocated, and her struggles to catch her breath proved futile. I'll ask you again. Who did it? There was a fierce glint in Dustin's eyes, and a chilling hostility emanated from him. A bone-piercing coldness instantly enveloped the entire ward. It was Edwin Hummer's daughter, Tina Hummer, who did it. Flustered, Joel blurted out the truth. She had never seen such a frightening side to Dustin. His gaze was akin to that of the devil, giving chills to whoever met it. Julie began to tremble. Watch over her. Once Dustin got the answer he wanted, he left without another word. A fiery anger burned in his chest. Chapter 132. The sky started to rain. At that moment, the atmosphere at the party in Emperor Hotel was lively as usual. The commotion earlier clearly had not affected the party. Tina looked like a princess, surrounded by people. Everyone approached her to leave a good impression. Yet, most of the people did not interest her. Only a few distinguished guests were worthy of chatting with her. Mr. Williams and Mr. Chapman are here. One of the butlers came up to her and reported. Tina turned around and saw two fine-looking men who were standing quietly at the entrance of the party. One of them was Oliver from Boulderthorn. The other was Oliver's senior, Troy Chapman. Behind the two of them were two bodyguards. Mr. Williams. Mr. Chapman. It's good to see you again. Tina immediately gave them a warm welcome with a smile. Happy birthday, Ms. Hummer. Oliver and Troy presented the gifts respectively. Oh, please. It is my honor to have you both as my guests. There's no need for presents. Tina grinned. It is only proper to reciprocate Joshua's kindness. After all, he has always treated us well. A small token of appreciation is nothing. Oliver smiled. Had they come from an ordinary rich family, she wouldn't have given him a second glance. However, Tina's brother, Joshua, was a disciple of Boulderthorn. He was their senior. And so, it was necessary for her to attend to them. Oh right, why is my brother not here today? Tina asked. Joshua is on a retreat at the moment. He's unable to leave, so he sent us here to meet you. Oliver explained. I see. Tina nodded and extended her hand. Please have a seat. Let me know if there's anything you need. All right. Thank you, Ms. Hummer. Oliver gave a slight nod before sitting down alongside Troy. Because of Tina's warm attitude, the surrounding guests' attention gathered around the two men. Who are they? Why did Tina personally welcome them? I don't know. They seem unfamiliar. I don't think they're from Swinton. Then, perhaps they are someone important from Millsburg. The sound of whispers rippled through the crowd as curiosity overlooked them. As the evening wore on, more guests arrived at the party, and the atmosphere grew increasingly lively. At that moment, a black silhouette approached the entrance of the Emperor Hotel with an umbrella in hand. After reaching the gate, he was stopped by two guards. Stop right there. Today is Ms. Hummer's birthday. Only those who received an invitation are allowed to enter. Step aside. Dustin did not want to waste another second and immediately headed inside. Scoundrel. You've got some nerve. The two guards immediately gripped Dustin's shoulder. The instant the two of them made contact with him, they were hurled backward with a force that sent him tumbling through the air, their cries of pain echoing through the night. Quick. Inform Sir Zims. One of the guards immediately took out his phone and called for backup. When he turned back, Dustin had already walked past the gates. After a short ride in the lift, he walked inside the ballroom. As he looked at the lively crowd, Dustin took a deep breath before shouting, "Which one of you is Tina Hummer?" His voice wasn't piercing, yet it echoed across the room. The lively crowd instantly went silent. Everyone turned towards him with displeasing looks. Who dared to call Ms. Hummer by her name? Everyone wondered. Who's calling me? Tina stood up slowly with a displeased look in her eyes. Dustin silently walked forward as everyone stared down at him. Hey, isn't that Dahlia's ex-husband? Why is he here? I'm guessing he's probably here to apologize. After all, stealing from Ms. Hummer is not a small matter. He's apologizing after his woman got beaten up. How shameful. People all around the room began to murmur amongst themselves as they pointed at the man. They were mostly mocking him. What? Are you here to apologize for that bitch? Tina's eyes scanned the man from head to toe, her lips curling into a sinister smile as she sized him up. If you're really interested in helping your friend, you might want to start by getting down on your knees. And who knows, if I'm pleased, maybe you'll consider letting her off the hook. So, you were the one who caused Dahlia's injuries. Dustin slowly approached her. Seconds later, he stood in front of her. So what if I was the one who caused her injuries? That bitch didn't know her limits. A slut like her deserved a beating. Tina laughed coldly. And let me tell you, this matter is far from over. Today was just a little warning. In the future, I'll pay it back bit by bit. I will be her nightmare for the rest of her life. As soon as the words left Tina's lips, a sudden, sharp sound echoed through the room. Smack. Tina was sent flying across the room. Her body flipped through the air, twisting and turning in a blur of motion, before finally crashing down onto the ground with a sickening thud. In an instant, blood started oozing from her nose, and her teeth scattered around the place. The entire room was stunned at the scene. Everyone's jaw dropped to the ground in disbelief. No one would have thought that Dustin would hit her. Moreover, he slapped her in front of such a crowd. Everyone knew that she was Edwin Hummer's daughter. She was the belle of the ball in all of Swinton. Had he lost his mind? How dare he lay a finger on Miss Hummer? Does he not treasure his life? Everyone thought. You dare to hit me? Tina held her burning cheek and stood up as her legs wobbled beneath her. Her face was filled with shock and confusion. Ever since she was a child, no one dared to disrespect her. Let alone slap her. She didn't know how to react. Smack. Without wasting another second, he slapped her once again with all his might. As blood spurted from her mouth, her once pretty face now disfigured, her teeth shattered and her features swollen and reddened, the sight was both shocking and distressing. Her hair was in complete disarray, leaving a chaotic mess in its wake. I'll make you pay 10 times the pain that you inflicted on Dahlia. Dustin roared out. His words and actions were impulsive and reckless. Boom. In a split second, the party was in shambles. One could say that the first slap was done out of impulse. A second slap was already humiliating and provoking her. But who in the right mind would want to provoke the Hummers? Chapter 133. He dared to hit Ms. Hummer. He must be asking for death. He's out of his mind. He's definitely gone insane. He struck Ms. Hummer in front of such a crowd. Not even the gods could spare him now. Because of Dustin's actions, the whole room went into chaos. Some were shocked, not knowing how to react. Others were impressed, while the rest were in disbelief. For all their lives, they'd believed that only a person like Tina Hummer could bully others. They could never even imagine someone who would strike back. Kill him. Kill him now. When Tina stood up again, she was in a frenzy. Her face contorted with terrifying rage. Kill him. The guards in the area finally returned to their senses and charged toward him with a baton. Dustin was unfazed. He moved at the speed of light, defeating each guard with a single punch, sending them flying across the room in all directions. He glided through the entire fight effortlessly, not a single hint of struggle showing on his face. The sight of the guards writhing on the ground in agony left everyone stunned. It was worth noting that these were Hummer's elite bodyguards, each capable of taking down 5 men with ease. And yet a single punch from Dustin was all it took to bring down all of these elite bodyguards. It was indeed surprising. Guards. Bring me more guards. One of the bodyguards quickly reached for his walkie-talkie and called for backup. Dustin remained unfazed and continued to advance, step by step. Stop him. Quick. Stop him. Tina was frantic as she stumbled backward. A few onlookers had the urge to play hero and rescue Tina, but one stern look from Dustin was enough to leave them frozen in shock, unable to make a move. You bastard. How dare you lay a hand on me? Do you have any idea who I am? I am Edwin Hummer's daughter. If you don't want to meet an ugly end, then bow down and apologize to me right now. Tina's voice trembled with fear, despite the brave front she put on. She mentioned her own family background as a means of defense, hoping that he would know better and back down. Her threat fell on deaf ears as she was met with another heavy slap in response. In a split second, her head was spinning as blood spilled from her mouth. You don't need to mention that. Even if your dad is here, I'll still slap you. Dustin said with a cold expression as he grabbed Tina by her hair and slapped her even harder. Each slap landed with a heavy sound ringing across the room. Smack, 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 smack. After a few slaps, Tina's face was left disfigured. Her nose and lips were tangled up. It was a gory scene to behold. All the guests were stunned and frozen in shock at the sight before them. Every single one of them had their jaws dropped to the ground. This was just crazy. It wasn't just about hitting her face. He was disrespecting the Hummers. He was playing with fire and risking his life. Stop. Suddenly, a loud, angry yell reverberated across the room. In the next moment, Oliver and Troy emerged from the crowd. Upon seeing the blood on Tina's face, both of them became furious in an instant. Who dares to make a ruckus at Tina's party? Oliver bellowed in an intimidating voice. Huh. Dustin turned around and immediately recognized the familiar faces. So it's you. Oliver was taken aback at first, but his surprise quickly gave way to a wave of seething anger. What a coincidence. I've been searching for you everywhere. I can't believe you'd show up here. Oliver, you know this guy? Troy was curious. Troy, this was the guy who punched me 2 days ago, Oliver said with gritted teeth. Chapter 134. You dare to hit someone from Boulderthorn. You must be tired of living. Troy's gaze immediately turned cold and unfriendly. Troy and Oliver were as close as brothers, and any harm inflicted upon one was seen as an affront to the other. Save me. Save me. Tina's eyes lit up with hope at the sight of Oliver and Troy, and she suddenly regained some of her energy. Don't worry, Ms. Hummer. With me and Oliver here, this guy won't be able to harm you. Troy assured confidently. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustin delivered another brutal slap, causing Tina to be flung across the table. Without a second of hesitation, he immediately proved him wrong. You. Oliver was furious. He was caught off guard by Dustin's unpredictable actions, causing a slight delay in his response. You bastard. You're dead meat. Your entire family will be dead. These two are the best fighters in Boulderthorn. You're just a piece of trash in front of them. I'll let them break all of your limbs before torturing you myself. Tina sneered, her face contorted with a lust for vengeance as she stood up shakily. Boulderthorn. Hearing the name, everyone broke into whispers once again. Everyone was familiar with the name. Boulderthorn was one of the top 2 guilds in the entire South City. The disciples of Boulderthorn were renowned for their incredible strength and skill, able to move mountains with just a small kick. But the top disciples were on another level altogether, possessing an unparalleled level of prowess and finesse. One of them was enough to wipe out an entire room. Who would have thought that people from Boulderthorn are here? Looks like this fellow is really dead meat. Well deserved. Whoever dares to make a ruckus here would have to pay the ultimate price. Kid, if I were you, I'd be on my knees begging for forgiveness. If you're lucky enough, you'd get a chance to live. The crowd erupted into a frenzied discussion, with people whispering and shouting their opinions on the unfolding scene. From their perspective, Dustin is indeed skilled in lighting. However, in front of the top disciples from Boulderthorn, he wouldn't even stand a chance. So what if you're from Boulderthorn? No one can stop me from doing what I want to do, Dustin replied coldly, without a hint of fear. Bastard. You're crazy. If I hadn't gone easy on you last time, do you think you could get away without a scratch? Oliver was furious. Oliver, let me handle it. Troy approached Dustin with a darkened face, but before he could take any action, Oliver stopped him with a hand. Wait, do we really need to do this? This guy isn't even from a guild. If we accidentally kill him, won't people start spreading rumors about Boulderthorn bullying others? As he spoke, he signaled the 2 bodyguards behind them. Anna, Emma, get rid of that punk. Don't hold back. Yes, sir. The 2 women immediately pulled out their swords. 2 days earlier, they weren't prepared, so they were defeated by Dustin. But today, they would not let the same mistake happen again. Mr. Williams. That bastard's not an easy target. Aren't you underestimating him too much by sending the 2 of them against him? Tina was suspicious. Don't worry, Ms. Hummer. The 2 of them are very skilled. They were trained by my father. Defeating him is nothing for them. Oliver said confidently. To be honest, both of them were even more skilled than he was. All right. Then I'm counting on you to get my revenge. Tina said with an evil smirk. No problem. As soon as Oliver gave a signal, the 2 women sprung into action, one flanking Dustin on the left and the other on the right, both bearing down on him with fierce determination. Zoom. As the women closed in on him, their swords shimmered with deadly precision, a testament to their impressive skill and training. Right when everyone thought Dustin was about to meet his end. With a loud clang, the 2 swords were shattered into pieces. The impact was so sudden and powerful that the 2 women were sent hurtling through the air, as if struck by a car, flying across the room. Before hitting the ground, a spray of blood erupted from the women's mouths, painting the air crimson, as they collapsed into unconsciousness. Chapter 135. Holy shit. What just happened? The crowd was once again in awe upon seeing the broken swords and the 2 women laying on the floor. They originally thought that Dustin was out of luck, but no one expected that after that face-off, the Boulderthorn girls would be the ones who faced defeat. This outcome shocked everyone in the room. This kid was not all talk. Oliver's eye twitched, his face full of shock. The previous time, he could argue and say that they weren't prepared for the attack. But this time, it was proven that there was a skill disparity. So you do have some tricks up your sleeves. No wonder you dared to cause trouble here. Troy narrowed his eyes as his lips curled into a playful smile. Although Anna and Emma were no match for Troy's skills, they were certainly enough to defeat a normal fighter. For Dustin to have defeated them so easily spoke volumes about his abilities, even if it wasn't much for Troy. Mr. Williams. Didn't you say that it wouldn't be a problem? Tina exclaimed. Her disfigured face made her look like a malicious demon. Just a bit of miscalculation. But no worries, this fellow wouldn't be able to do much with me and Troy here. Oliver laughed awkwardly and explained. Don't worry, Ms. Hummer. I will avenge you. Troy stepped forward and stared into Dustin's eyes. I admit, you do have some skills. But too bad you're facing me today. I'll give you one last chance. Kneel down and beg for mercy right now, and I might spare your life. Punk. Did you hear that? Hurry up and kneel. Otherwise, you'll be obliterated by Troy. Oliver added. Really? Give me all you've got. Dustin answered calmly to their taunts. Bastard. You really can't catch a hint. Don't you know who Troy is? He's the lightning fist of Boulderthorn, who's never fallen in battle. Oliver bragged confidently. After hearing those words, the crowd went wild. What? Is he really the lightning fist, Troy Chapman? Oh my god. I can't believe even the lightning fist is here. This is gelling interesting. What's lightning fist? Is he great? He's not only one of the elites in Boulderthorn, he's at the top of the board. He could take on 100 men at once. What do you think? Isn't he great? There are only a few people in Swinton who can match the lightning fist skills. Looks like this kid is meeting his end. After learning Troy's true identity, the crowd began praising him. The spectators had anticipated an ordinary light, but it was not until a top fighter like him emerged that they realized the true potential of the bout. Troy's chin lifted with a newfound arrogance as he basked in the adulation of the crowd. He really enjoyed the feeling of being admired. Punk. Weren't you so confident just now? Why are you silent now? Are you scared? Oliver mocked. Though his abilities may not have stood out as much, his senior, Troy, was undoubtedly a top-notch fighter. He had been training all his life and was already a master at honing his energy. His ability was second best to the Grand Master himself. No one in Swinton could faze him. What's a lightning fist? I've never even heard of it. Dustin remained unbothered. These words once again drove the crowd wild. My goodness. Does he not treasure his life? He dared insult Lightning Fist's name. He's clearly unaware of his limits. He can't even comprehend how strong Lightning Fist is. What a reckless idiot. Thinking he knows everything. Let's see how he faces death later. All eyes were fixed on Dustin, who seemed to have earned the scorn and contempt of the crowd. Punk. You'll face the consequences for the words that just left your mouth. Troy's expression turned cold. He was still acting recklessly even after learning his true identity. How foolish of him. I don't care who you are. You better leave now or I won't hold back on you. Dustin's eyes were burning with rage as he stared Tina down. The other people in the room were not even worthy of Dustin's attention, as he remained solely focused on Tina. Mr. Chapman. Kill him. When Tina met Dustin's gaze, she was frightened to death. She could feel a chill run down her spine. At the moment, she only hoped that he could get rid of that crazy bastard as soon as possible. Punk. Since you want to die so badly, I'll fulfill your wish. Troy flexed his muscles as he let out a yell, causing his shirt to rip apart, revealing his chiseled physique. The combination of his impressive muscles and his flashy, swift movement caused a group of ladies to swoon in admiration. Today, I'll show you what it's like to be a lightning fist. Troy closed the distance between himself and Dustin with a small, swift movement before leaping into the air and extending his arms like a hawk, ready to strike. How majestic. How astonishing. The crowd thought. Die. Troy spun around, his head aimed towards the ground, and struck Dustin's head with a powerful punch. The spectators were impressed as they watched Troy's impressive pose. How handsome. He's so majestic. Ms. Hummer. Did you see that? That's Troy's signature move, the lightning fist. One punch would be able to break mountains. Oliver explained proudly. It would be best if he could kill him with one slap. Tina said with a sardonic smile. One punch is definitely enough to kill him. This fellow should be proud to die in Lightning Fist's hands. The guests shook their heads, convinced that Dustin's fate was sealed. After all, he was facing a full-blown punch from the lightning fist. In Swinton, how many people would be able to stop this kind of punch? You're just all show. Dustin's voice was cold and unwavering as he stood his ground. Without hesitation, he retaliated with a punch that caught Troy off guard. Boom! Their fists collided with a loud bang. Dustin had not moved an inch, but the ground beneath him had shattered. Troy, on the other hand, let out a pained cry as his fist erupted into a trace of blood. He was sent flying across the room at lightning speed, landing heavily against the wall as blood spurted from his mouth. Before Troy could even react, Dustin was already in front of him, delivering another punch. His moves weren't as flashy, but they were deadly. Please spare me. All the color drained from Troy's face as he screamed in horror. With a loud thud, he kneeled on the ground. Chapter 136. Whoosh. Troy felt a strong gust of wind hit his face, causing his features to contort in pain as he could feel his bone becoming dislocated. His eyes were fixed on Dustin's fist, which stopped right in front of his chest. Although it was still a few inches away, the intimidating force still caused him to tremble in fear. Blah! Blood spurted from his mouth. With just the sheer force of his fist energy, Dustin had the power to dislocate the bones in Troy's body. The thought of what would have happened if his fists had actually landed on him was almost too terrifying to contemplate. He was lucky that he had kneeled in time. Otherwise, he would have been out cold. Spare me. Please. Troy was now on his knees, his face drained of color as he begged frantically. All the confidence he had earlier was gone, replaced by fear and desperation. Rather than shock, Troy was feeling terrified at the moment. That was because when their fists collided, his power shattered like glass in a split second, leaving him defenseless against the sheer force of his opponent. He could feel the excruciating pain in every single bone in his body. This situation would only happen when there was a significant disparity in skill level. That is why, when Dustin was about to make another move, Troy chose to beg for mercy. Begging for forgiveness on his knees was a small price to pay in exchange for his life. Don't appear in front of me again. Dustin said coldly. Yes. Right away. Troy immediately fled the room without an ounce of hesitation. He didn't even care about his dignity. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched Troy flee the scene. The top-notch warrior, an elite disciple from Boulderthorn known as Lightning Fist, had actually fled from battle. Everyone's jaws dropped in disbelief. No one could have predicted this outcome. Originally, they believed that Troy's appearance would resolve the situation, but now the tables had turned completely. If they had not witnessed it firsthand, they wouldn't even be able to believe it. A legendary warrior who had never been deleted in battle fled the scene in terror. How is this possible? Oliver's eyes widened in disbelief. That was his incredible senior, Troy Chapman. As a disciple of Boulderthorn, Troy was a master at honing inner energy, with unmatched skills and extreme talents. Oliver couldn't wrap his head around how this had happened. He didn't even hesitate to kneel down and beg for mercy. What the hell is going on? Oliver wondered. There's no way. It's impossible. Tina couldn't stop shaking her head in shock. That was the top disciple from Boulderthorn. How could he be defeated by a nobody? In fact, she wasn't the only one thinking about it. Everyone in the room had the same idea. However, the truth was right in front of them, and no matter how much they wanted to deny it, it wouldn't change the outcome. Did you say that you would stand up for her too? Dustin's gaze landed on Oliver. Punk. You're lucky that my senior's injury recurred today, otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to escape so easily. Next time, you wouldn't be so lucky. After finishing his sentence, Oliver fled the scene. Troy was no match for Dustin, then wasn't he just an easy target? Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams. Tina yelled at the top of her lungs. Yet, Oliver picked up the pace and ran even faster, disappearing without a trace. At that moment, she was frozen on the spot. As I've said, I'll pay you back tenfold for the damage you did. A cold voice rang beside her ears. Tina turned around and realized that Dustin was already standing behind her. I'm warning you. Don't mess with me. I'm Edwin Hummer's daughter. If you dare to lay a finger on me, you and your entire family, even your relatives, will suffer the consequences of crossing the Hummers. Tina shouted desperately. Sure. I'll play this game with the Hummers. But before that, I will need to get my revenge first. Dustin's hand shot out and grasped Tina. A horrific, ear-piercing scream echoed through the entire hotel. The screams continued every few seconds. When Julie arrived at the hotel all drenched, she saw Tina being tortured. She was completely frozen as she stared in shock. Earlier, when Dustin left the hospital, she felt that something was off. So, she immediately followed him. She never thought that he could be so brave to go against M's Hummer in front of such a crowd. At that moment, Tina was not just unrecognizable, all 4 of her limbs were detached from her body. The gory scene filled with blood was extremely unsettling. Stop. Stop this instant. Dustin. Are you out of your mind? Hurry up and let go of Muz. Hummer. Julie came running as she yelled. Dustin ignored Julie completely. He just looked down at Tina, who was lying on the ground, with a final flicker of life. I won't kill you tonight, but that doesn't mean I forgive you. In 3 days, kneel down and apologize to Dahlia. Otherwise, you will suffer the consequences. After finishing his words, he raised 2 fingers and thrust them into Tina's pressure points all over her body. It was a technique he had developed himself, and it was deadly. The victim would slowly die in 3 days. Moreover, he was the only one who could break the curse. Crazy bastard. You're a maniac. Now that you've hurt Muz Hummer, you're not the only one who will suffer. We're all doomed because of you. Julie saw Dustin, who was about to leave, and yelled at him once again. Yet, Dustin did not even spare her a glance and kept walking towards the exit. The crowd made way for his exit, not daring to stop him. Hurry. Secure the premise. Suddenly, a shout was heard from outside. A horde of towering fighters stormed into the room. Instantly, the men surrounded the entire room. Who dared to cause trouble at my place? A man with dark sunglasses and a smoldering cigar strolled into the room, emanating a menacing and dangerous aura. This is great. Sir Zims is finally here. We can finally have the scene under control. Sir Zims is the trusty right-hand man of the Hummer family. He definitely wouldn't let him off for beating Muz Hummer into a pulp. Although he's quite skilled, he only has 2 fists. He wouldn't be able to take on hundreds of men no matter how skilled he is. The crowd went wild once again as help arrived at the scene. Sir Zims. You're just in time. Dustin not only caused trouble, but he also beat up Muz Hummer. Julie quickly reported the incident to him. What? He dared to hit Muz Hummer. Which bastard did this? If you have the guts, come forward. Let's see if I can tear you apart myself. Mason's gaze narrowed, his blood boiling with anger. It was me. Dustin approached him slowly. You. Before Mason could strike, his expression changed completely when he saw him. Mr. Rhys. It's you. Dustin simply uttered a single word, scram. Yes, sir. Mason nodded and stepped aside. Once again, the entire room was dead silent. Chapter 137. The rain was falling even harder. Edwin was in the middle of a conversation with Fletcher at the Hummer Villa. Mr. Hummer, the first batch of Etonamax has been sold out. On top of that, we received a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people are interested in partnering with us in the long term. Now, we'll be able to mass produce this product. Fletcher reported excitedly. That's the secret recipe for you, all right. Who would have thought it would have such great feedback right after its debut? Edwin laughed joyfully. He originally thought that it would take a while for people to warm up to the product. He didn't expect the opportunity to present itself so quickly. At that point, he must strike the iron while it's hot. Speaking of which, we should be grateful to the Harmon family. Without their painstaking research all these years, we wouldn't have this baby in our hands right now. Fletcher grinned. Natasha was foolish to dare to fight against me. I'll defeat her once and for all with Etonamax. Edwin said happily. Then I shall congratulate Sir Hummer in advance for your success. Fletcher clapped. All right, it's getting late. Time to join Tina's party. If I'm too late, she'll certainly have some complaints. Just as Edwin stood up with a grin on his face, an old butler ran into the room frantically and exclaimed, Sir. Bad news. Ms. Hummer has been beaten up. What? Beaten up? What on earth happened? Edwin frowned. Who was brave enough to dare touch Edwin's daughter? There was a kid who stirred things up at the party. He even beat Ms. Hummer half to death in front of everyone. Ms. Hummer has already been sent to Hummer's hospital. The butler reported in a hurry. Hummer's hospital was under the Hummer's supervision. It was also one of the top hospitals in Swinton. The doctors are all global elites in the medical field who pledged to serve the Hummer family. Go to the hospital. Edwin didn't spare another second and immediately rushed to the hospital along with a group of people. However, as he cautiously stepped into the hospital ward, his eyes widened in disbelief at the jarring scene that greeted him. On the bed laid his own daughter, Tina, who was nearly lifeless. Her face was utterly unrecognizable, a mangled and gory mess. Her limbs were even worse, appearing as if they had been brutally torn apart from her body, her bones shattered and beyond repair. Who did this? Edwin roared like a crazed lion. For all his years, no one dared lay a finger on his daughter. Sir Hummer, from what we've found, it seemed to be done by a guy named Dustin. At that moment, an injured bodyguard explained the earlier events to Edwin. After hearing his explanation, his expression immediately turned dark. That son of a bitch again. He keeps ruining my day. I'll cut him into pieces. Guards. Get me the best trackers and track him down, I want him captured alive. Edwin clenched his fists and said between gritted teeth. Also, kill the entire Nicholson family. I want 'em all dead. Yes, sir. After receiving orders, the group of people immediately scattered. Sir Hummer, that guy's skill is quite unmatched. Not anyone could go against him. Fletcher said. He'd been slapped by Dustin once. Until now, he's still a bit traumatized. What are you trying to say? Edwin turned around. From what I know, it would be best to summon the White Dragon Guild. The members are all top-notch fighters. It shouldn't be a problem for them to take on that guy. Fletcher suggested. White Dragon Guild. Don't you think it's overkill to use them against a nobody? Edwin narrowed his eyes. The White Dragon Guild was Edwin's secret weapon, and he wouldn't use it lightly. Sir Hummer, this guy is not just a normal fighter. He has the Harmon family supporting him. To be safe, we must summon the White Dragon Guild. It would be the best choice. Fletcher advised seriously. After pondering for a few seconds, Edwin finally made the decision. All right. Contact the White Dragon Guild immediately. Get me the best fighters. Whoever dared to lay a finger on his daughter would have to pay the ultimate price. On the other hand, in Java Joy's. What? Dustin stirred up trouble at the Hummer's party. And he beat Tina into a pulp. Natasha was completely shocked at her sister's words. Yeah. Dustin is insane. He beat her up in front of so many people. He even tore her limbs apart. He's really on another level. Ruth said excitedly. He doesn't seem like someone who'd do something irrationally. How could he do something like that? Natasha was puzzled. Probably because of that girl. How could he hold back after that Nicholson was publicly shamed? That's why he went to get revenge. Ruth did not hide anything from her sister. After hearing the news, she shared every single detail with her. No wonder. Natasha nodded. Sis, aren't you mad at all? Ruth was a little surprised. Why should I be? Natasha asked. Dustin made such a grand move for that woman. It's obvious there are still some lingering feelings between them. Are you not bothered by it? Ruth was straight to the point. Dummy. They just got a divorce. Of course, there would be some lingering feelings. That's inevitable. Also, if Dustin had not acted on it, he would have lost my respect. Natasha was unconcerned. Sis, I really don't get what you're thinking sometimes. I wouldn't be able to let it go if a man I like had lingering feelings for other women. Ruth scratched her head. After all, the ball is in their court. I believe that Dustin wouldn't let me down. Natasha smiled. Dustin's pride wouldn't allow him to make the same mistake twice. I hope so. Rather than Tyler, I would much prefer Dustin to be my brother-in-law, Ruth muttered. All right, that's enough. Nothing is set in stone yet. Tell the others to keep an eye on Dustin. If he's in danger, make sure to help him immediately. Natasha rolled her eyes and ordered. Okay. Ruth nodded and immediately left. They were both well aware that Edwin would not let this go easily. It was inevitable for a war to happen. Chapter 138. After that big incident at the party, Dustin finally returned to East Swinton Hospital. When he entered the ward, he noticed that Florence and James had already arrived. Which evil bastard beat up my daughter to such a state? How could they be so cruel? Exactly. If I find out which bastard did this, I'll tear them into pieces. Seeing the injured Dahlia, the Nicholsons couldn't help but curse, feeling pity for her. Why are you here? We didn't even contact you. Suddenly, one of them noticed Dustin, who was standing at the door. I came to check on Dahlia's injury. Dustin walked into the room slowly, his face not showing a hint of expression. Get out. You're not welcome here. James roared, letting out his pent-up anger. Dustin. Tell us the truth. Does my daughter's injury have anything to do with you? Florence glared at him. I don't have the details about how she was injured. Perhaps you should ask Julie this question instead. Dustin replied. Julie. Speaking of which, where is she? Didn't she attend the party with my sister? Why isn't she here? James frowned. Could it be that Julie is injured too? Dustin. What exactly is going on here? Who hurt my daughter? And where is Julie? Florence's expression immediately turned dark. I think it would be best if you didn't find out. Dustin shook his head. If you have something to say, then say it. No matter who hurt my sister, I will make them pay. James said furiously. That's right. We won't let him off easily. Florence exclaimed. The person who injured Dahlia is Tina Hummer, Dustin answered truthfully. Tina Hummer. Who's that? James had no clue. The daughter of the richest man in Swinton, Edwin Hummer. Dustin replied. What? Sir Hummer's daughter. Everyone was stunned by this piece of information. They exchanged glances, not knowing how to reply. Especially Florence and James, whose anger immediately disappeared. They would have been yelling for revenge if it had been an ordinary person. Yet, when they heard the name Hummer, they didn't even dare to get angry. We had no grudges against the Hummer family. How could Ms. Hummer be so cruel to us? Florence gulped. That's right. My sister was invited to the party. How did she cross Ms. Hummer? James frowned, deep in thought. The others were uneasy as well. The Hummer family was someone they would never dare to provoke. Even if they were wrongly accused, they couldn't do anything about it. You won't have to do anything. In 3 days, I'll let Tina Hummer apologize to you all in person. Dustin assured easily. Hey. Do you even know what you're saying? Do you know who Ms. Hummer is? Do you think that's something you can handle? You'll let her apologize. Look at yourself. James said, unimpressed. Exactly. Do you have no idea who you are? You just know how to brag all day long. If you really had that ability, why would you let them hurt my daughter in the first place? Florence exclaimed. It was obvious that they did not take Dustin's words seriously. After all, it was Edwin's daughter. A true billionaire. Even they were afraid of provoking him, let alone a nobody like Dustin. You all must be the patient's relatives. At that moment, a nurse walked into the room. We just received a notice that the patient shall be transferred to a VIP ward and receive better treatment. All of this will be free of charge. Will you guys accept this offer? Free of charge. Of course, of course. We most definitely accept. Florence's eyes sparkled as she nodded fervently. That's great, please follow me. After a signal from the doctor, a few others came into the ward to help Dahlia into the new ward. Dustin stood still as he watched the people leave the room. It was his order to switch to a VIP ward. Although he was not afraid of Edwin, it was still inevitable that he would seek revenge. This was his safety measure. A few moments after Florence and the others left the room, Julie sprinted into the ward. Aunt Florence. I have big news. I just saw. Before she could finish her sentence, she was stunned. Her eyes widened as her gaze landed on Dustin. You. Why are you here? You're just in time. I have something to ask. Dustin approached her slowly. Don't come any closer. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you, slay back. Julie retreated 2 steps backward in fear. She could still vividly picture the screen earlier where Tina was brutally beaten up. In her eyes, Dustin was a maniac. Why are you so afraid? Could it be that you're guilty of something? Dustin said lightly. You're the one who should be guilty. I don't have anything to hide. What's there for me to be afraid of? Julie declared, putting up a front. Good. Then let me ask you, were you the one who framed Dahlia for stealing at tonight's party? Dustin's demeanor turned cold. Nonsense. We're cousins, how could I harm her? I'm warning you, don't accuse someone innocent. Julie's expression contorted into a panic. Accuse someone innocent. Dustin laughed coldly. Then tell me, how did this end up in Dahlia's bag? Who else would have access to her bag other than you? He tossed a box in front of her with a pair of ruby earrings inside. How would I know? It's not me. Julie's eyes flashed with panic as she desperately clung to her lie. You better think clearly before you answer. Otherwise, you'd lose your chance. Dustin said expressionlessly. What do you mean? Are you saying that you'll lay a finger on me? Julie shouted sternly. You have 1 minute left. Dustin lifted a finger. What on earth are you trying to do? I'm not afraid of you. Julie said as she backed away slowly. 10 seconds left. Dustin. I'm warning you. Before Julie could finish her threat, footsteps could be heard outside the room. Boss. I already got the information that Dahlia is in this ward. Good. You. Keep a lookout. The others. Follow me. After an exchange of words, a few assassins dressed in black immediately swarmed the room. Who is Dahlia Nicholson? The leader scanned the room with a piercing gaze. She is. Dustin pointed his finger at Julie. The next second, with a sharp clang, 2 swords were pressed against Julie's neck. Bring her. Chapter 139. What? Julie's mind went blank when a pair of swords were held at her neck. She was unable to process what was happening. From the assassin's forced entry to Dustin framing her, everything happened too quickly. When she finally regained her composure, she was already in danger. Rhys. How could you do this to me? Seeing as she was about to be held hostage, Julie panicked. Wait, it's a mistake. I'm not Dahlia, you've got the wrong person. Do you think we are stupid? This man told us you are Dahlia Nicholson. The assassin's leader retorted. He's spouting nonsense. Don't believe him. Julie said, cold sweat running down her forehead. She never expected Dustin to exact his revenge on her in such a despicable manner. According to our intel, Dahlia is in this hospital room. If you aren't Dahlia, why would you be here? The leader demanded fiercely. I was just passing by. Julie stammered. Fuck. How dare you lie to me? You must be tired of living. Julie was violently slapped on the cheek by the leader, making her ears ring. What are all of you doing? Take her away, he ordered. Some of his men immediately dragged Julie towards the door. It's not me. It's really not me. Rhys, you asshole, You framed me. Are you even human? Julie burst into tears and wailed loudly. She knew that if she were to be taken away, she would definitely suffer inhumane abuse. Dustin. I'm sorry. Please save me, I'm begging you. I've learned my lesson. On account of Dahlia and old Mr. Nicholson, you can't sit back and do nothing. You have to save Mel. Julie broke down and apologized profusely. At this moment, only Dustin could save her. Shut the hell up, you bitch. Julie's cries for help got on the nerves of the assassin leader. He gave her a few more slaps on the face. Julie staggered and fell to the ground, blood flowing from her lips. When Dustin felt that Julie had been punished enough, he spoke up, saying, Guys, I'm sorry for the confusion. I've made a mistake, she is not Dahlia. What did you say? When they heard this, the assassins froze. Punk. How dare you trick me? The leader narrowed his eyes threateningly. I guess you could say that. Dustin nodded. You bastard. The leader was furious. He rushed towards Dustin with his heavy blade and swung it using his full strength. By the agility and power of his movements, the leader was obviously a martial artist. His skills were far superior to those of a normal person. However, Dustin did not dodge. He blocked the attack with his bare hands and landed a kick on his opponent's abdomen. The leader screamed in agony as he flew out the door. How dare you hurt our leader? You are dead meat. The other three assassins threw Julie aside as they turned to attack Dustin simultaneously. However, before they could get close enough, Dustin gave all three of them a flying kick and knocked their heads together. Without another word, they fainted on impact. Fuck. Who is this monster? The last assassin, who was guarding the door, saw what happened to his teammates. Fearful for his life, he ran away as fast as his legs could take him. 4 of his friends were dead. He wasn't sticking around to find out what was going to happen to him. Dustin, you. Julie's eyes were as wide as saucers. She never knew that Dustin was such a good fighter. In the blink of an eye, he single-handedly defeated 4 assassins. She breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Dustin was around to save her. On second thought, she remembered that it was because of Dustin that she was mistaken for Dahlia. Julie's anger blazed to life again. Confess to Dahlia regarding today's incident. Remember, there is no next time, Dustin said with a condescending glare. I'll let you off today, Rhys. However, don't be too proud. Edwin will come after you now that you have beaten up Ms. Hummer. You will be hounded out of Swinton. Julie gritted her teeth in anger. You must be sorely mistaken. It's not the Hummers who will be coming after me, but me going after them. The Hummers must issue a public apology regarding the assault, Dustin said breezily. Public apology? You must have lost your mind. What right do you have to demand an apology from the Hummer family? Julie scoffed. Whatever, it's up to you whether to believe it or not. Dustin shrugged. Let's see how long you can fake it. Hopefully, you won't be wetting your pants in front of Edwin Hummer. Julie scoffed again and turned around to leave. Dustin couldn't care less about her. He dragged the leader of the assassins into the hospital room. Did Edwin send you? What's it to you? Through gritted teeth, the leader answered rudely. How many of you are there? Dustin continued calmly. The White Dragon Guild is full of skilled lighters and martial artists. 5 of us were sent to scout ahead. If you desire to live, it would be best to surrender immediately. The leader threatened. I've never heard of the White Dragon Guild. Dustin shook his head. That's because you're being ignorant. The leader smirked. Punk, if I were you, I would flee Swinton right now. Otherwise, you will be sitting ducks when our guild master arrives personally. Really? I'll be waiting for him, then. Dustin smiled. With a loud crack, he twisted the assassin's leader's neck. He died on the spot. At this moment, a group of menacing bodyguards appeared at the end of the corridor. Stefan was leading the way. Greetings, Mr. Rhys. Stefan walked up to Dustin and bowed slightly. Ms. Harmon ordered us to assist you. If you need our help, just ask for it. Thanks for the kind thought, Mr. Chapman. Dustin nodded in return. There are a few unconscious assassins here who have been defeated. Please dispose of their bodies. No problem. Stefan gestured to his men, and they quickly carried the bodies off. By the way, what do you know about the White Dragon Guild? Dustin questioned. The White Dragon Guild is regarded as one of the top 3 guilds in Swinton. The guild members are mainly ruffians and scoundrels from the underworld. They take orders from Edwin and conduct illegal operations. Their infamous reputation precedes them, Stefan explained. Oh, I see. Dustin nodded. The White Dragon Guild has many skilled lighters, especially the guild master, Dracos Milroy. He is one of the best martial artists in Swinton. It is said that his skin is impenetrable to a sword or blade as he has attained the highest tier of martial artistry. The wise thing to do would be to escape instead of challenging him. Stefan Warmed. Thanks for your advice. I know what to do, Dustin replied nonchalantly. He was curious to see what it would be like to spar against the best martial artist in Swinton. Chapter 140. The night grew dark as rain poured down. The streets were empty, as there was no one around. Just then, a fleet of black Hummer vehicles drove in at high speed, splashing puddles of water. The vehicles pulled up at the entrance of a hospital building. As the car doors opened, a group of burly, muscular men got out. One of them was smoking a cigar. He was a large and muscular man with a beard, more than 6 feet tall, at least a head above normal men. His arms and thighs were bulging with muscle. Guild Master. That man is still inside, he never left. The last assassin pointed to one of the floors of the building. He had been lying in wait for support to arrive as he spied on Dustin. I expected that you could handle this guy on your own. Why do I still have to be personally involved? The bearded man narrowed his eyes with displeasure. He was the guild master of the White Dragon Guild. Guild Master, don't underestimate that guy. He took us down as easily as dominoes. The assassin reported. All right, surround the building. The earlier we get this settled, the earlier we can rest, Dracos ordered impatiently. If it weren't for Edwin's orders, he wouldn't have inconvenienced himself by coming down personally. Stop. Who goes there? A group of bodyguards dressed in suits streamed out of the building. They were the Harmon family's men. What? Was there a group of men protecting him? All right, you boys can use them for practice. Draco motioned to his men. Yes, Guild Master. His disciples behind him grinned evilly and rushed up to fight the bodyguards. They were out for blood like a pack of wolves. Stop them. The bodyguards were not to be outdone. They pressed forward as one to block the guild members. The scene erupted into chaos. Although the bodyguards were well trained, their fighting skills weren't on the same level as those of the members of the White Dragon Guild. After a while, the bodyguards were forced to retreat, falling under the pressure. Who dares to go against the Harmon family? An aggressive roar interrupted the fight as Stefan emerged with a few of his comrades. Making his way through the crowd, the guild members were repelled backward by Stefan's internal energy, creating a space around him. Oh, is he a martial artist with internal energy? How dare you show off your tricks in front of an expert? Get out of the way. Dracos had a cold smile on his lips. Stefan threw fist after fist without stopping, forcing the guild members to fall back. They were no match for him. Reckless bastard. Dracos took a deep breath and released a surge of energy in Stefan's direction. The attack sliced through the raindrops and zeroed in on him. Fortunately, Stefan had a keen sense of danger. He noticed the attack coming and went into a defensive stance. Boom! An explosive sound was heard as Stefan's defense was shattered. He was blown backward about 30 feet away, leaving deep tracks on the ground. Stefan was flung onto a wall like a ragdoll as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Weakling. Dracos scoffed. Dracos thought that he had finally met a worthy challenger. Unexpectedly, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. Why you? Who are you? Stefan furrowed his brows and stared at the towering figure in front of him. Due to the darkness, he couldn't identify who the man was. How dare you beat up my men if you don't even know who I am? Dracos approached him menacingly. Stefan finally recognized him when his bearded face was illuminated by the streetlights. You are Dracos Milfords. Stefan fixed his eyes on the man as fear spread across his face. The nightmare he dreaded really came true. Since you seem to know me, we can settle this easily. Kneel down and beg for your life. If I'm in a good mood, I might let you go. Dracos laughed mockingly as if he was entertained by Stefan's fear. Both of you, go and tell Mr. Rhys to escape. I'll hold them back. Stefan gritted his teeth and prepared himself for a fight to the death. Yes, sir. The bodyguards behind Stefan ran into the building without hesitation. Their mission was to protect Dustin, and they were prepared to do it at the expense of their lives. Hey, do you think you could hold me back? Dracos smirked. I'll do my best to buy him some time. Stefan was determined. Don't blame me for your death since you were the one who asked for it. Dracos scoffed again. He flew at Stefan like a streak of lightning. I'm going all out. Stefan took a deep breath and faced Dracos squarely. Both of them collided directly into each other as another loud explosion was heard. Stefan was thrown back like he had been hit by a truck. His body blew into the air and landed heavily on the ground with a loud thud. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. He did not even have the strength to stand up. Don't overestimate your abilities. Dracos taunted. Compared to Dracos' strength, Stefan's internal energy and skills were feeble. Mr. Rhys, I did my best. I hope I have bought enough time for you to escape, Stefan muttered as he laid in the rain, despair in his eyes. Dracos was on another level as he had already attained the highest tier of martial arts. In addition, he had trained his body to be as impenetrable as steel. No wonder he was deemed the best martial artist in Swinton. Stefan knew that he was no match for Dracor. He couldn't even put up a good fight. It is an honor for you to die at my hands. Dracor came up to Stefan and stared at him condescendingly, like looking down on a bug. He lifted his leg to stomp on Stefan's chest and finish him off. At that moment, all the glass windows of the hospital building shattered simultaneously. A dark figure swooped down and landed heavily on the ground. The tough cement crumbled beneath his feet and large cracks propagated from the spot where he landed, like a spider's web that extended for miles. Who is it? Everyone had bewildered expressions on their faces.